Hi, this is Caroline from The Happy Sensitive. Here, a gorgeous spring day, you know, kind of like it's supposed to be. And I was walking along and I was thinking about a lot of the alternative therapies and psychotherapy and coaching that I've been in touch with and that I've experienced. And I realized there's a kind of common theme that's been bothering me recently. So I wanted to spell that out and see if you recognize some of that. There is, in both coaching and in certain kinds of healing modalities, there's this idea that if you just kind of confront a client with either their goal or their problem, that's enough. That you just kind of kick their ass or throw them into the deep end, or you give them some kind of remedy that will kind of increase their frequency and bring blocks to the surface, and then you just kind of leave the person with that and let them kind of sort it out on their own. And then that's considered to be healing or supportive or like helpful. And what that actually does is it kind of, you know, for some people it works because they're able to do their own healing basically, but that means they're basically doing all the work and somebody else just kind of gives them a little bit of a kick every now and again, but that's not really that supportive, it's not really that helpful. And for other people what happens, if something really big gets triggered, instead of being able to move through it, there's a kind of panic that arises and there's a kind of stress and anxiety and resistance that comes up on the inside. And instead of, you know, the healer or the coach or the therapist helping the person with that thing, instead they say, oh, you know, now you're in resistance, and so you shouldn't be in resistance, you should flow with it, or you should be open to it, or you should deal with your stuff, you know. But the thing is, like, you know, the reason that you are stuck there is because there's some kind of difficulty you're having with dealing with this stuff, and that's what you need help with. You know, you don't really need somebody to show you that there's more great things possible, or that you should just set a goal and then, you know, jump into the deep end and just do it. Because if you kind of get pushed into the deep end, you will swim because you have to, but it doesn't mean that you actually work through the issue. You know, if somebody throws me into the deep end of a pool and I'm terrified of swimming, I will find a way to float or just get out of the pool, but it doesn't mean that I've conquered my fear. It just means that I've survived one instance of having dealt with the fear. But, you know, the next time that I'm standing in front of the pool, I might be just as terrified, and I might be just as resistant to jumping in and actually, you know, doing whatever I think I want to do. Or so, you know, just because you confront somebody with a block and just because you push them to go through it doesn't mean you're actually helping them heal, and it doesn't actually mean you're helping people change their patterns. It might actually create a lot more stress and a lot more resistance. So I just wanted to bring this up because I think for, you know, if you're working with somebody who works like that and they just kind of push your buttons and they just trigger you and then they leave you to sort out for yourself how to move through it and how to resolve it, you might feel like there's something wrong with you, like, you know, you're not good enough and you have to work harder. But really, it's, you know, it's the therapist or the coach or the healer that needs to help you figure out how to move through it. And here's the other thing, like, this is my approach. There are moments where somebody is so locked into a kind of struggle where it's helpful to confront them with it and to really kind of push them up against that limitation. You know, I don't think this is a good strategy most of the time, but there are moments where that I think it's necessary. But then what you do as a, you know, supportive healer, guide, therapist, coach, is you don't actually push somebody through or up against it and then, you know, let them sort it out on their own. You actually work with them in that session to actually resolve the resistance and help them to move through it and help them come to the other side of it, right? So that's a completely different approach. And so if you're experiencing that, you're working with somebody and it feels like you're doing all the heavy lifting and you have to figure out a way to just survive, you know, the treatment or the intervention or the coaching sessions because so much stress gets triggered that you feel like, okay, now it's up to you to find a way to, you know, move through that and calm yourself down, then you're dealing with somebody who's not really supporting you and who's not really going to teach you how to support yourself. You're dealing with somebody who's used to just kind of working with moderate issues maybe, where it's enough to just kind of gently push someone or kick someone and they'll find a way through. But for the really tough issues, for the really big stuff, this doesn't work. Because what happens instead is it brings up all our kind of defensive mechanisms and all our fear mechanisms, and then we just kind of drown in our own resistance and our own struggle, and it's really, really painful. And I know it's not necessary, and I think if you're working with somebody who works like that, it just means that they don't know how to help you in this area. And even though they may be able to see where you could go and what you could do and how you could have a better life. They might be able to see some of that. If they can't actually help you figure out how to get there and move through things step by step, then they're probably not a good match for you at that point. And I'm just switching because my arm's getting tired. Okay. And the other aspect of that is that I think, you know, pushing people into the deep end, it's easiest for the therapist, and there's a kind of way of working that's very confrontational. But here's the thing, if you can slowly and gently coach someone or show someone in, you know, how to swim, and you can teach them first on dry land, and you can help them build their confidence, and then you help them to go into the water, you know, at the shallow end first, so that people get a confidence about swimming, then at some point they're going to want to go into the deep end by themselves, and they'll be fine. It's like, you know, you're swimming in the deep end, it's like, oh yeah, I can do this. There's no fear, there's no terror. There might be a little bit of anxiety because it's their first time, but it's not going to feel like you're drowning, right? So I really think that approach of just pushing somebody in, and you know, especially for HSPs, I really think it doesn't work, and I know it doesn't work for me. I know if somebody does that with me, I feel like I'm drowning and I have to use all my own healing tools and all my own, you know, tools to comfort myself, to first calm myself down and then work through whatever came up. And you know, it doesn't feel like I'm being supported. It feels like somebody just increased the number of problems that I have, and now I have to desperately fight to get through them, right? It increases your stress levels. So I'd really say as an HSP, like, start noticing where that's happening, start noticing how people work with you, and I'd say start picking the people who actually help you to slowly and gently move through things so that you actually increase your confidence, your ability, your skills, so that the next time, you know, if you really learn how to swim, then you're not going to be scared of the deep water anymore. You'll be able to just get in by yourself. But if you keep having people pushing you in and then getting all terrified and going through it, having like this amazing experience where you're like, I was so terrified, I almost died, but I made it through. Yeah, you make it through, but it's a very stressful experience, and it doesn't actually mean that you then heal and are able to, you know, work with the underlying stuff that was keeping you from jumping into the deep end in the first place. Because there's that whole idea of having to jump and having to take big strides and having to do something drastic, you know. You can take small steps, and then there will be a point where you're just naturally ready and it doesn't feel like a big deal. But there's something about making things into a big deal and taking steps that are too big and having these kind of confrontational experiences that makes it feel like we're doing something really big and important, but actually we're just stressing ourselves out. So that's just my perspective on these kind of situations. And you know, you find this approach in many different modalities and situations. You also find it in the workplace. And I think as an HSP, it's just good to know that, you know, there's another way to learn and there's another way to progress.